There is real fear right now in the small cap altcoin market. Bitcoin has seen a 7x rise from the bear market lows. Let me make sure my mic is on. Yes, it is on because I just moved it. Solana has seen 30x gains from its lows, and many blue chip altcoins going up 5x, some 10x from their recent lows in just the past 2 months. And yet many altcoins are struggling still at or near their bear market lows. So is it time to just move on? Sell those dead and not moving coins and go to where the action is. This is exactly the move that so many make. It is so normal to feel this way, and it almost never ends well for those who do it. Now, stepping back, it has always been so puzzling to me that only 5% of people make exceptional money through investing. I mean, you can look at the market. Past prices go back to 2020, 2019, and then what happened in 2021. How is it that so many people, like only 5%, made amazing money? Why is that number so low when you see this massive swings in what price does? Well, that number is so low because our emotions often mislead us into exactly the wrong actions, and we then take the wrong actions. The 5% of investors who do savagely well, they don't do things like the rest of everyone else. So think back to my earlier statement. This certain altcoin, man, is doing nothing but go down or just stay so low. Is it time to just move on? Sell this dead and not moving coin and go to where the action is. Now, think about the bigger picture when you look back at the price history of a token and you see where that token, any token, was really, really cheap before it took off. What was the sentiment of people who were selling at that point? How could they have been selling? Why did they sell? How stupid was it that they sold there, knowing now, because we can see way into the future now what the chart then did, because the chart history is now in and you're just looking at some past point, that they would have made incredible gains. This happens over and over again. I mean, you can look at the chart of Solana, realize that Solana was $7, like a year and a half ago? $7. And there were people selling there at $7. And you know what they're saying? This token's dead. I want to be where the action is. I want to go where the action is. Oh my gosh. Solana is on its way to zero and it is dead. Realize 95% of people were selling or had sold along that journey, and only 5% were buying there. Now it's up 30x, and guess what? People are selling their dead tokens to roll into Solana after it's already gone up 30x. And now you start to see why 5% of people make savage money in crypto. And 90 to 95% don't, well, 90% lose money or break even. 5% just do okay. The remaining 5% crush it. People do these same actions, these same patterns over and over again. So yes, OMI is devastatingly cheap right now. Isn't it time to just sell and move on to something that has been a lot more exciting like Solana? Well, let me ask my compadre here, who is co-host of the channel. OMI is my homie. And let's see what he thinks about this. Randy.
Oh, hello.
OMI is so devastatingly cheap. Should we just sell our OMI holdings? I mean, shouldn't we just give up on it? Should we roll it into XRP?
Well, I mean, you have two options there. Your two options are to, sell it and move it into something else. Or, well, I guess you have three options. You know, one thing is to hodl, and then every new money that you get can go to other things if you just want to hold there. Or another option is to dollar cost average. There is one point I want to bring up, though. You were talking about just saying, like, hey, people go from where the action is not to where the action is. It's like science. The heat goes from where it's hot to where it's not. And I feel like people have been ingrained in this since school. I think Disney pokes at it. The princess syndrome, not the princess syndrome. Like Ariel goes on and says, like, I want to be where the people are. Like, everyone wants to be part of the action. Thomas O'Malley sings, everybody wants to be a cat because being a cat is where it's at. And I feel like that's just the natural progression. People are just social creatures. They want to be where the action is. They want to be where the people are. And that's fine to feel like you're winning. But if you're going into something that, like you said, has already run, that's, and could it still run further? Sure. Like Devi's like a 12x from the bottom where it was. Can it go higher? I think so. But I also feel like we should hammer home the point that you should not hold something just because it's down. Like if you're taking what you said to heart, you're like, well, this is down and it stays down. But as long as I hodl, people are getting out. Like if you're in a token with no community, if you're in a token with that's not attached to a company with no revenue, if you're just attached to a meme coin where the amount of holders that you had are like liquidating by the day every time there's a little thing, like if it's not attached to anything that's tangible or solving an issue, then I would not hang on to that. But if it's something where people are actively working on it, where I mean, I don't know how many people work for Ecomi, but I know a lot of people that work for VeVe, and I know that they're the memes of like Reverend Alex G marrying the VeVe community and the OMI token. You had Dr. Prophet on the podcast, my 12-hour stream the other day, talking about how there's a bunch of things that are going to happen in 2025, many of which that are going to happen in 2024. And he's not just some random they took off the street. This guy is one of the most successful people that I think has ever been on the podcast, that's ever been on the streams. So the fact that he's not just working on it, but I mean, when the dude has more OMI than like pretty much anyone, heavily incentivized to make it go up, and it's not just going to be a pump and dump. Like this, I don't know if Dr. Prophet has sold. I don't know. He's like the number 4 wallet, give or take, on VeVe, and the amount of stuff he sold is like minuscule. Maybe he sold 50 things out of the 15,000 things that he has, where he constantly buys, including a lot of one-on-one. So this person is definitely a long-term hodler. Been hodling for 4 years. I feel like has only ever gotten more. So when you take a look at all that and decide, okay, well, what are my options here? And one is to sell, which if you want to go and take the tax loss, if you had gains on other stuff, I mean, now you have like that time is kind of gone, because now you have another 11 months. Like by all means, if OMI is still down here in another 11 months or 10 and a half months, and you want to take that tax loss, sure. I mean, we had words with the Ecomi community manager, Foster Hill, yesterday, going off and saying like, hey, I know people are frustrated about certain things. Be advised, we are working on stuff, and there's a whole communication page that came out today that we'll go over. But he says, come back 6 months from now. Now, does that mean we suddenly moon in 6 months? I think anything could happen before or after. I think a lot of it will largely depend on the just on the narrative hitting. Whenever that hits, it could be, and we'll go over that as well. But for me, I haven't sold a single OMI. I've actually gotten a bit more recently, so I'm up to 202 million. I'll try to get a little bit more. Towards the end of next month. Is all my new money going to go into OMI? No. But is some of it going to still go in? Yes, because I love it at these prices. And if any of my other tokens that I have a decent amount in go up a lot, yeah, I'll take some profits out of that. And some of it will I keep for myself? Sure. I could, use a haircut and a wardrobe update. But a decent amount of that's probably going to go into OMI, especially if it's at these prices. 2021 me would absolutely poop himself if he knew that he could get 1 million OMI for $300 and 100 million for 30,000. It's not outside the realm of possibility for people to just be like, yeah, I'll just throw in 30K, just get 100 million. I mean, I threw in 20 times that in 2021, so just that's where people are at.
So shouldn't we just sell? Like OMI's down, all the action is happening on Solana and meme coins. Shouldn't we just sell all our OMI and roll it into Trump coin right now?
It's so wild that you said, because I forget who it was that put these crazy clickbait titles like XRP to like 10,000, and it's like, do you know what the market cap would be? It'd be like $18 quadrillion if that were to go. But there's a couple of people that I know that just looked at the title, be like, hey, this is XRP is going to $10,000. And I was like, bro, what? And and then having to break it down, like I feel like once you go out and say something out loud, then it kind of clicks in people's minds. Oh, okay, yeah, that'd be insane. That's not gonna happen. So I'm not doing that. Am I saying that XRP is a bad investment? Not at all. I think it could definitely still run from here. Same with Solana. Same with a lot of these top 10 or even top 100. Even meme coins, which I mean, I don't really go in and on many of those outside of the cat that I personally have stuff that I'm doing for, but I don't have. I tend to only stick with stuff that is attached to a company, has a use case that has a bunch of revenue, and the company is just going to be around for a long time just because of those revenues. And like VeVe, they're going to get it right eventually. Like you have the Evolvables drop that came out, like multiple of those already. You had the new app updates, and I know people were pretty salty at the app update because it wasn't as good as the old app, but they've had like I think 8 new updates since then, and now it's as good, if not better, than it was before. And the fact that we're actually getting progress, we're slowly moving, is something that makes me a bit bullish. And especially like the new communication that they have. Ben's been around for like 5-6 months, dude. Let him cook. I mean, give him a little while. I trust in him. I'm not going to go in into especially with, and that's what I want to ask you about, Rain. There was I don't know if you saw it. There was somebody in a large group chat that we're in that said, like, my father who lives on Social Security wanted me to buy him $5,000 worth of the Trump coin, and all of him and his 80-year-old friends are trying to like scramble to get Solana wallets and trying to learn the technology. I was like, bro, like that's what do you think of that? What is that, a net positive, a net negative? You have people coming into the space, which is great, but buying stuff at the top is definitely not great. Tell me your thoughts.
Yeah, and we don't know if Trump coin is at the top. We know it's significantly up, and it's hard to tell. Might it go higher than here? Yes. Meme coins, in my opinion, are like playing roulette. And I don't love roulette unless you were able to stack the odds in your favor. And how are you? Like, if I were to play meme coins, and I don't, because the odds are just worse than other things. And so if I were to play meme coins, I would only play the big ones like Trump has hit that trajectory. Pepe, Doge, only the ones that have hit enough trajectory. But I just wouldn't play them because by the point that you know that they've hit enough trajectory, a lot of your major gains are gone. And it's not like you can do research on the underlying company to see how solid their idea is and will it change technology in the world. There is no technology. It's just a meme. And so it's just fad analysis. And so there just isn't the potential returns, and the risks are very, very high. So would I sell meme coins that are going low and everyone's falling away? Well, yeah, you would have to, because meme coins are a whole different animal entirely. What I think the crypto space is an opportunity for early business investment within the blockchain space, and you're just playing cycles. These cycles are an amazing thing. See, I've been cycle investing far longer than I've been in crypto. I started to understand cycles in investments since I was a kid. I watched homes in California. I wasn't living there, but I watched the stories about how little $40,000 homes went to $250,000 to $300,000 in a real estate boom in the 90s. And this was interesting to me because I was poor and I didn't like being poor, and my parents were poor and I didn't always want to be poor. And I'm like, wow, it went from 40,000 to 300. Well, then they came down to like 60,000. Everyone was saying real estate was a terrible investment and this and that, and foreclosed homes. You could buy these homes in California and it was so bad. You could buy them for 60,000 and then you would have to put some work in it. And real estate's the worst ever, buying it at 60,000, and only the stupid people are buying real estate at 60,000. And I'm like, wait, isn't the whole point of investing is to buy low? So why does everyone tell nobody? They tell everyone don't buy low. Like, the weirdest thing is to make money in investing. And yet all these people are saying, don't buy when it is actually cheap. And then when it goes really expensive, they're like, buy now. It's going to go up for forever. And this cycle plays out, whether it's crypto, whether it's real estate, over and over and over again. And you look back on the charts, and it just takes a little bit of imagination. Go to when Cardano was at 3 cents in 2020. What do you think the sentiment of people was when Cardano was 3 cents? The community that had held it from $1.40 down to 3 cents. Do you think they were pretty excited about the future at that point? No, most were selling. That's why it went all the way to 3 cents. Then another kick in the head. It went to 1.7 cents. And guess what the sentiment was? You are stupid if you're holding Cardano. Why don't you move into where the action is? Bitcoin has been going up. Why don't you sell your Cardano and roll it into Bitcoin? Now, that would have been a devastating mistake. And I watched so many people make it. I try to use that analogy to help people understand what's going on with OMI. And you know what they say? They say, well, Cardano's different. It's a layer 1 blockchain. And OMI is not a layer 1 blockchain. It's like, wow, genius. You are so brilliant. You're right. OMI is not a layer 1 blockchain. How you knew that? That's amazing. But what's so funny is you're so caught up on whether it's a layer 1 blockchain or not, you're missing that the pattern is playing out exactly the same. Because all we are is like analyzing the cycles here. And the cycles are so ridiculously similar that if you don't see it, it's because you just haven't woken up yet. And that's okay. You're going to get punished by missed opportunities. And you're going to be like, shit, how didn't I see it? That's okay. Cool. We'll be celebrating and we'll be on the island with martinis and stuff. And you'll be in exactly the same place as you are. And you won't get it. And that's okay. Like, hey, life has its lessons and they have a cost associated with it. There will be a bunch of people who capitulate at the bottom, a bunch. And it always happens. It happened when Bitcoin hit 14,000, like what, 2 years ago, a year and a half ago. And people capitulated out of Bitcoin because, oh my gosh, I need to roll it into real estate. Real estate is where all the action is. What am I doing here? And then since then, they've seen the real estate value stay about the same, maybe go up a little bit, but not like 7x like Bitcoin has done. And they're like, oh my gosh, what did I do? But everyone would have told them they were making the right decision. Almost everyone, except the 5%. They said, you're selling so low. Yeah, but it might go to 3,000. You're right, it might. But now's not the time to sell. And yet they did it because 90 to 95% of people were telling him, oh yeah, that's smart. Yeah, no, Bitcoin's dead. Like, go where the action is. Cool. I see that case being made for OMI again. I just smiled when I saw that. And I was like, I wrote a little tweet, about this. I was like, I love the smell of savage capitulation in the morning. Smells like victory.
There's a book called The Citadel about this one kid. He's like a mountain climber, and all of these people tried climbing this one impossible mountain to climb like the same way. And they're like, well, this is the way that you do it. Everyone's tried this way. This is the way that we all agree is the best way. And he's just like, well, I see another way that it looks really hard. No one's ever tested it, but I think I can do it. And some people that take that road less traveled, like in his case, it worked. Spoilers on the book. He was able to go and climb it. And again, that doesn't always work, but look at the people that are super successful. Stephanie Germanotta, aka Lady Gaga, she was kind of made fun of in high school and college because she was different and she didn't follow the crowd and she wasn't one of the popular kids. But her weirdness and then calling everyone her little monsters, that's part of what made her great. I think part of what makes people great some of the time is when they go against that grain. Now, most of the times does not work. I mean, for every, Lady Gaga you have 80,000 people that are not. But sometimes when you get that talent, you get that readiness, you get that hard work, you can go in and make something completely different. There's that quote that say like, you laugh at me because I'm different, but I laugh at you because you're all the same. Who are the people that tend to do really well in life? It's the ones that are just a little different. It's the ones that go in and take that road less traveled. And
well, what's interesting to me is like, I've always recognized patterns, right? Like patterns show up in our lives and, I make all kinds of mistakes. I'm almost bad at everything I try at first. But then I look for patterns so that I can become better at things. And what I realized with these patterns, I got burned on my first real estate investment. I bought when everyone's like, oh my gosh, it's amazing. And I was concerned it was near a top, but it was affordable and I didn't want to rent anymore. And owning was the same as renting as far as cost. So I bought a little condo out of the university, or while I was still in the university. And 2 years later, I paid like 94,000 for it. And 2 years later, it's worth about 72,000. I was like, dang it, I knew it. Why did I do this? But I had so much confirmation from everyone around me that, oh yeah, the market's just going to keep going up. And I was like, I think it would reverse, but I'm newer at this. Maybe I'm wrong. And everyone's saying this. So I listened to the 90 percenters and I went ahead and bought. Now, long term, like, real estate, all the mistakes you make in real estate almost get corrected over the long term, because like, what's that condo worth today? I don't still own it, but that same condo is worth like 400,000 today. So like over long term, it's like problems kind of fix themselves. But for the next like 6 years, 7 years, it was a major thorn in my side. Well, yeah, the 90% are wrong. And so I started to wake up to that. But I remember like how often people get it wrong. I remember being in 2010. I had a friend that was living in Phoenix, and he was telling me about buying a home for $50,000, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 4-year-old home for $50,000. I was like, you're kidding me. So I started researching the real estate market in Phoenix, and there were so many foreclosures because it had overboomed. These homes had been selling for $250,000, and people were saying back then, that's never gonna, new paradigm. It's never gonna stop going up. Here you were, 2010 through 2012. Those same homes are going for foreclosure. Now they need a little bit of work, but not a ton of work, but like maybe 5 or 10,000. You could buy them for $50,000. They've been $250,000. And so I know this guy that like bought 10 of them. But you know what was funny was most people were saying about the Phoenix market, it's a disaster. Don't buy here. Homes are so cheap. And I'm just listening to this, and I'm like, what don't they get about this? What don't they get about the idea that to make money as an investor, the whole principle is to buy low and sell high? But yet so many people are allergic to taking the actions that would lead you to actually buy low, because sentiment when you're buying low is also extremely low. They think that there's this weird universe that sentiment is really, really high when prices are low, and that universe never happens. There is no place that happens. So when you're buying low, you're going against the common sentiment where everyone's telling you, no, don't buy at these prices. It's dead. And yet you're going in like a person running into the firefight and buying there. And so that's what so many people get wrong. They think that there's this like different type of world that they can listen to common sentiment, buy at those prices, and then make savage gains. And it's like, it doesn't work that way. By the time everyone's sentiment is really, really positive on a thing, the major gains have been made. Now, maybe there's some more gains, and often there is in crypto because it can go so far up. So if something goes up 10x already, you might be lucky and still have another 10x there. If you're really blessed, you might have another 50x there. But those people that ran into the firefight when sentiment was super low, that bought at those crazy low prices, they have a 10x on you. So if you got 10x, they're at 100x. Do you realize those are the 5%ers that made life-changing gains? And I wondered if by creating a channel that I could share these ideas with people, that I could help the numbers be higher than 5%. What I realized is when I'm covering videos that like are massively undervalued projects, nobody is searching for those projects. So YouTube's algorithm like punishes those videos. But I thought, that's okay. This won't ever lead to having the biggest audience in YouTube, and I don't need it to. The bigger goal is, what if the audience, we can talk about these and we can look at the real risks and like, is this project going to survive, and how strong is the actual underlying company and stuff, and make guesses at what the odds are. What if it leads to the highest success rate in audiences, this way of thinking? Because this is how the 5%ers think. Why? Because as I've been in crypto for so long, I talk to everyone I see that's made massive gains over time, and this is what they do. It's not any different among that 5%. And this is not what the 90% of people do, who eventually just kind of fade out. It's no fun to be in crypto after watching other people totally get rich and you don't. They usually just eventually wash out. I wish they would update their thinking, and some of them do. I mean, the 5% that are there, at some point, they didn't think this way, and they had to learn from their mistakes. But most people don't. They just wash out entirely. A small fraction of them learn from their mistakes and then start doing things right. So what I learned is probably attracting the people who already somewhat think this way. There might be a few people who kind of recognize this pattern when you share it with them, and it saves them on their learning curve, that it shortcuts their learning curve by a ton. But the truth is there's always going to be that 90% they just can't get past. They expect there's going to be this magical world that they can buy when sentiment for something is really high, yet the price is still really, really low. And that magical world doesn't exist.
There's a lot of people that are betting on Ben, on David, on Dan, on VeVe. And when you talked about like, oh, the rich get richer, there's a lot of political strife about that. And we don't have to go over that, but that's been something I've heard since I was a kid, the last 30 years. Oh, money goes to money, the rich get richer. And that's partially true, but obviously we've gone over it before, where the more correct version is money really goes from the inpatient to the patient. You have multiple people this week. Mur40 bought 156 collectibles. Stephen Duarte bought 117, or I'm sorry, he only bought 34. That's Buchenwald that bought 117. There's a bunch of people that have bought 100 plus collectibles, 175, 184, 105, 217. And then the top ones were Expert with 377 and Dr. Fuse with buying 1396. Dr. Fuse is incredibly intelligent. He was in the Air Force, not with me. We were in it at the same time. We never served together on anything because what he did was far above my pay grade. He's one of the smartest people in the entire community, and he's the number 2 wallet. My friend Vinny used to say, if you see somebody and you like what they do, if you like what they have, well, do what they do, and one day you'll have what they have. And I'm not going over, I'm going to say like, hey, you should buy $1,400 or 1,400 collectibles in a week like this man did. But all of these incredibly smart, talented, just successful people are all kind of betting on VeVe and OMI. There's probably a reason for that. And you have 2 options. Either one scenario is the amount of users keep dwindling. OMI does not get on exchanges. Ben does not do what he sets out to do. And the OMI token kind of just stays here and fizzles for the next X amount of months. And that NFT narrative does not come. And the other option is that Ben, who has been very successful, and I don't think he would have taken this job unless he thought he could make it work at least a little bit, whose benefits package is directly tied to the success of VeVe. You have him delivering on some of the things. You have Dr. Profit saying, hey, there's a couple of things in 2024 that we wanted to get done, and we couldn't get it done in time, but it will be coming done in 2025. David talking about VeVeverse launching, trying to get that out in Q1. All of these things are it looks like they're going to happen. And if they do, again, this is the second part of this, what happens to the OMI token? I mean, you could make that argument that like, well, just because VeVe is super successful and you have more availability for the token, more options to access it, doesn't mean it'll go up. Fair point. You're right. That's not a 100% causality rate, but man, if that's not a sign for people to come in, especially with that NFT, like I don't know what is, and maybe I'm wrong, but I'm willing to bet that I'm not.
So I've always been fascinated by how to make lots of money, right? Since I was a kid, because like, my parents had to keep moving because their job, my dad's job would take him to different places. And I didn't want to move. I was really popular in one school and I was really enjoying the environment. I liked the friends I had. And I was like, don't move. And it's like, oh, well, we have to, because our job says, well, quit your job. Well, we don't have the money. If I quit my job, we won't have any money. And we were pretty poor to begin with. And so I was like, oh man, money equals options. So I was fascinated by money. And when I was at the university, I read this book called The Millionaire Next Door, and it enlightened me on some things. That the rich don't get richer. People who use their money well get richer. But inherited wealth is almost always squandered because the kids don't often used to learn the lessons from their parents on how to use their money well. Because what happens is those that use their money well continue to get richer. Why can't that be you? It can be you. Not if you decide that only the rich get richer and I'm not rich, so therefore I can't get richer. Well, if you do the wrong things, you won't get richer. But the people who are already rich that made that wealth, they do continue to get richer. Why? Because they learn the secrets of making their money work for them and using it well. Because once you learn how to be a savage investor, you can keep applying it to different things. And you can learn those skills. And you know what? Someday somebody will be complaining about you. Oh, well, you're just rich. And of course, you just keep getting richer. And it's like, well, I was poor, and they'll have a hard time believing it and be like, I came from a middle class or whatever. Your story will be quite amazing. And they almost won't believe you because you'll be so rich and they can only see you that you were always that rich. And they didn't see the learning curve that you went through, that once you figured out how to be a savage investor, it was over. And once you made your first million, then you made your next 10 million, and then you made your first 100 million. And then it just seemed like money just continued to be thrown at you. And not every investment will work out perfectly, but you'll become really good at the skill of identifying companies that are worth investing in when sentiment is low. And so that you'll be able to use that skill to stack the odds in your favor so that more of your investments will work out for you than don't, and become really good at this. And then people will be complaining about you sitting in there in the audience that haven't yet made this wealth. It is on the way to you in the future. As you learn these skills, I know many of you in the audience have been around for 2 or 3 years working on these skills, learning to think this way. And it's so amazing because once you get this down, it will have changed your life for forever. Like I remember talking to a mutual friend of ours, Randy, like 6 months ago when I was in Ohio with you. And he's like, oh, what should I do? I'm thinking of going into this university program that would take me 4 or 6 years. And I was like, gosh, I don't know. Maybe I'm biased on this. But what's amazing to me is this crypto has allowed us this place that we can take money and put it, like we don't have to have hundreds of thousands of dollars or millions of dollars to be able to make really good money in crypto. What if you decided crypto was your part-time job and learning how to think like an investor was your part-time job? And you went out and worked 1 or 2 jobs and you took as much money as you could, like you squeezed your expenses, threw as much extra money into crypto. And you think of this like your university experience for the next 4 years. And you learn over that time to become a savage investor. How much money could you make from that? Well, millions. How much do you have to spend on your education? Well, you're always bad before you're good. And he was new at investing, but he was looking to the right people and learning some good things. That it's like, you only have to get really good at this once. And as you become really good at this, you learn to take better and better investments, and certain ones will really, really explode, especially in the crypto space where you can actually make 50x or 100x or 200x gains. I was like, what better thing could you be doing for your career than something you can start part-time, that you don't need to take out $1 million loan to buy like a Subway franchise or whatever. And you don't need to go to like Harvard and pay $500,000 on your degree. You can be investing in yourself, in your own investment skills in the crypto space. There's been no better time. Why not go that route?
There's a super chat here from Chosen. I always think of Karate Kid when I look at his name. Often saying, do we know the tax implications for VeVe collectibles as far as buying and selling collectibles in-app for gems, and also selling collectibles for OMI via Stacker, then cashing out through Coinbase? So this is not tax advice. I'm not a tax accountant guy. It's going to be contingent on your country and then state. As far as crypto goes, technically everything you sell is a taxable event. Every time you swap, it's a taxable event. I don't know what it is for VeVe. I give everything to my accountant. He takes care of it. Also, cashing out through Coinbase is not yet possible. You can obviously cash out stuff through Stacker if you go and sell there, but you cannot send that to Coinbase. You can send it to I guess you can convert it to the OMI to USDC or ETH and send that to Coinbase. So I guess you can do that. Great, thanks for super chat. I hope I took advantage of my last OMI bump I shared. I don't know how you knew that, but you did. You did. Yeah, those are super chats. What do you got on that, Rain?
Yeah, that's a great question for your accountant. Definitely don't get into tax advice here. I hope everyone took advantage of my last OMI bump I shared. OMI bump did when price went down or what?
It was like a week ago. He had mentioned something when it was like 0002 or 00029, and it's like there's going to be an OMI bump, and then it goes to 000 like 4, and then I was like, oh, it was right, it did happen, and I was like, oh, I wonder how high it's going to go. And it came back down, and so I guess if you traded that, you could get a lot more now. I've just never tried to trade, as I know as soon as I go and trade, oh yeah, 0006 when it goes back down, and then it'll just keep going. I just don't want to do that.
I tried my hands at trading, right? On like trading and like looking at the charts, and I was like, if I get really good at this, I can make really good money. And I realized it's not necessary. The way to make really good money is just as I did it in real estate, where you're buying literally when everyone is running out of the building, but you're using research. So I don't go into meme coins because there's not something substantive beneath it to really analyze. I'm looking for earlier stage blockchain businesses that have like something that makes sense, like a narrative that makes sense for the future of blockchain. So like digital collectibles, I think in some ways digital collectibles are superior to physical collectibles. Makes sense that the world is going digital, that collectibles will go digital. So I see VeVe as one of the biggest leaders in that space. And they have a token associated with it. So what I'm doing is I'm buying the token associated with a narrative that I completely believe in. I look at the team. How is the team really performing? I wade through all the FUD and emotional like crying when sentiment is low, because realize anytime you're buying something when the price is really low, that sentiment is also going to be really low. And you will have all kinds of crying and complaining every single time. There's not going to be a single time in history that you'll be buying something when price is really low that sentiment isn't also really low. So you got to wade through all the complaints and, oh my gosh, my feelings are hurt and this happened and they delayed on this promise and they promised all these things and didn't deliver. You will always have that. And really seeing, is there tangible business there? How is their revenues? Do they have enough cash flow to make it through to when I think their company is going to be successful? Now, there's a magic thing that happens in crypto that they don't ultimately have to survive to where they're making massive revenues. In order for you to make tons of money, you just have to survive until the next bull market, and that narrative runs within the bull market. That's all that they have to survive. So I look at a project like VeVe and it's like, well, do they have enough cash flow to survive until the digital collectibles narrative hits within this bull run? Well, probably, because they're one of the few crypto companies out there that has any incoming revenues whatsoever other than selling their token on their own investors' heads. So VeVe actually has some kind of revenues coming in, which is cool. They've been hiring really key positions. They're making good decisions as a company. Boy, I really believe in what VeVe is doing. In fact, most of their competition has fallen away, and they're a leader in this space. And I think this space in the future is huge. And their token behind it, I don't see how this goes bad. Well, sentiment is really low. And the modern investor just said he's selling all his OMI. I'm like, thank heavens. When I see stuff like that, I'm like, oh my gosh, yes. Because I've been through this type of cycle, not just in 2019, 2020, but before that in real estate. And the sentiment was always super low when the bottom was in. And so when I see that kind of stuff, it just makes me smile. And it makes me think of Apocalypse Now when he's like, I love the smell of napalm in the morning. It smells like victory, but, savage capitulation better comes to mind. Because it is savage and sentiment is savage and people are crying and whining and like, oh my gosh. And like, why these people stick around for a project that they've sold their tokens on and complain, I don't know, but it happens every single time. Even when I was buying low with real estate, after going through my own halvening, I got divorced in separated in 2010, took till 2012 to actually divorce to actually go through. It was a really contentious divorce. I had that halvening plus the market, and I was trying to dig out of it. And I started buying property again in 2015. So market wasn't at the bottom. I was wishing I could buy. I was watching in 2010, 2012. I was like, oh my gosh, everything's so cheap. Savage capitulation. But even in 2015, capitulation in real estate was really low. And it was like, oh, it's so risky to buy real estate. It's like, it's as cheap as it's ever been. What do you mean it's risky? Oh my gosh. Now people are like, real estate's the best thing in the world. It does nothing but go up. Buy as much real estate as you can. It's been going up since 2012. Yeah, exactly. There's like, everyone's telling you, if you buy real estate, everyone's cheering you on right now because it's going to continue for forever. That should worry you. That should really worry you. Why? Because you're buying a time that sentiment is really, really high on something. Guess what follows that? Usually not good things. So when you're buying for investment, if you're trying to buy low so you can sell high, you are buying when sentiment is really, really low. So thank you for another massive capitulation. It helps me know that we're exactly on track.
Agreed. There was a buddy of mine that texted me the other day saying, "Hey, Randy, hope you're doing well. Wanted to touch base, get your thoughts. With all the good news in crypto over the last month, why do you think OMI is continuing to tank? Even though I think it went from like 0033 to 0029. It's like, why is it tanking?" So I just said we've reached the point in the bull market where people sell what they have at a loss to chase green candles of other things that are running. And this was before the Trump and Melania token. When they launched, it sucked absolutely all the liquidity out of the market.
Out of Coinbase, everything across the board, right? Like,
because Coinbase ran out of Solana.
What's that?
Coinbase. So I told him, like, Coinbase even ran out of Solana, and there's rumors that they were buying Solana from other exchanges to fill their orders. And then I said, listen, on every pump, we have people that sell because there's a bit more liquidity and they're just looking to get out, whether it's from Bit4X or they just bridge from GoChain over onto Ethereum or Base. And then you have the people that are saying, like, okay, you have a sitting president launching a meme coin. Why can't we get buybacks? Why can't we get burns? And we'll go over the burns in a second. But I feel like a lot of that is apples and oranges. Meme coins are exactly what they say they are. And they're memes. There's no securities or regulatory risks because there's no promise of anything. But buybacks and burns are still securities issues under the current lack of regulatory framework. That's why you can list a meme token in 30 seconds on an exchange. But when I say burns, I mean like buying back the token and then burning. They do have obviously a bunch of OMI in their business development wallet. They did promise 5.5 billion OMI burns, I think like a year ago. And they mentioned that in an article today that they are doing it. I wish that they would do this in conjunction with the VeVe, say like, hey, we're going to burn, 500 million. And then like once a month, you just have burn parties. Everyone goes in, that gets a lot of people to go into the VeVe, that gets their attendance up, and they could make like a show out of it. Say like, okay, well, let's bring some people up. We'll have performances. And then at the end, you start to burn it. You get just 1,000 people there to spend an hour in there once a month. That's just 1,000 hours right there, and they can go and they can pitch that to other people they're looking to make deals with. They can pitch that to other people that they're in negotiations with right now, saying this is what we can do, this is what we can offer.
So right.
I guess before, go ahead.
It's right to be frustrated that meme coins can instantly get listed on big exchanges. Like I think Trump coin was just listed on Coinbase or some big exchange, right? It's like, what? That's no fair. And it's like, it is not fair, right? The reason why meme coins can get instantly listed, and I'll say this for the 7 millionth time, is because it is such a stretch for the US SEC under Gary Gensler to have declared them a security because there is zero utility to them. When there is some utility to them, there's an argument that the SEC can make that, oh, that should be classified as a security. And in a fair world, it would be like, okay, so we're a security. Where do I sign up to register as a security? Oh, you can't. Wait. So I might be a security, but I can't then register as a security, but you may come after us or the exchange who listed us because we're a security and we're not registered as a security, but there's no way to register as a security. Well, yeah, that's what we're saying. What the fuck? But that's what's been going on under Gary Gensler. And what it really is we are trying to sink crypto. And this is how we're going to sink crypto, is we're going to go after as many tokens out there as we can, declare them as securities, because they're not registered as a security, yet we give them no path to register as security because we don't want crypto to happen. So this is exactly what they've been doing. And they haven't pushed crypto from not going forward. They pushed it outside of their jurisdiction. So if you're outside the US, Well, you can get on exchanges that have, say, OMI really easy. But if you're in the US, the exchanges that deal with US citizens have been super careful. What's already on their exchange, they're like, it's already on our exchange. We're going to have to bear some regulatory risk that the Gary Gensler might come after us. In fact, Coinbase got pursued and said, you listed Cardano and listed all these things, and they could be deemed security, so we're suing you. So they put a freeze on listing any new tokens unless they felt really strong that Gary Gensler would have a really hard case making the case that they were a security, which meme coins, basically tons of meme coins that got listed on exchanges, which means you can only buy shit on the exchanges because it's hard to declare that shit is a security. Yes, that is the case. Has it been fair that then you can't buy OMI? No, that's not fair at all. And if you think the world is fair, not when you have corrupt bureaucrats. This is the problem with turning over so much authority to bureaucrats. Well, when they're corrupt, they F everything up. The less power they have, the less they can F up when there are corrupt people in place. This is why I make the case I like libertarianism, which is small government, because guess what? You can't always ensure you won't have a corrupt government because they fiddle with everything. Notice that Sam Bankman-Fried had almost no problems with the SEC and Gary Gensler until he was caught that he was funneling millions and millions of dollars that weren't his to the politicians. And when enough evidence came out that he was doing that. But prior to that, Gary Gensler was all ears talking to Sam Bankman-Fried as much as he wanted. So it doesn't stop you from, like, the corrupt actors when you give the government this power. It just stops you. Why? Well, I would make the case that probably there's a bunch of corruption going on because they weren't trying to be fair. And so, yes, it's made it hard for companies. Most of the money in the world is in the U.S., and U.S. investors have been the redheaded stepchild. So a lot of these crypto companies want U.S. people to be able to buy their tokens, but they've been in this really gray area of like, we don't know what the rules are. Gary, can you tell us what the rules are? No, I'm not going to tell you what the rules are, but if you break them, I will come after you. Well, what are you saying? There's no speed limit here, and you're telling me you're going to give me a ticket if I'm speeding? Yeah, that's exactly what I'm telling you. Well, I just won't drive on that road. No U.S. investors allowed. So then everyone's like, why hasn't OMI listed somewhere where U.S. investors can buy? Well, can you not see this problem? Are you not adult enough to realize the problem here? Why do I have to explain it to you the 10th time? Well, I don't, to the grown-ups that are in the room. It's the little kids that are in the room that don't get the bigger picture anyway. So obviously I'm probably preaching 90% to the choir here. But this is the problem that people have been facing. Yes, it has hurt OMI's price because they're not on bigger exchanges like Coinbase and stuff where the U.S. investors can easily buy it. Have they made some back roads so that you can buy it too? Yeah. They put it on ETH. They moved it to ETH so that you can buy on Uniswap. So there is an avenue if you're in the U.S. to buy it. Now it's on the base chain too, so you can get it with lower transaction fees. So there are avenues. Is it difficult? Yes. Well, there is a new sheriff in town. He's called Donald J. Trump. And you are going to see a huge change from that lack of regulatory clarity environment to a clear environment. Now, hopefully that clear environment is way more fair than what it has been, and it's way easier, but we'll see. Time will tell. I think it will be. And then you'll see Coinbase listing a bunch of new tokens that they were scared to list under Gary Gensler. And hopefully you see a lot more things come on, and it's a lot more fair that everyone just knows what the guidelines are. Oh, okay, we're deemed as security. Can I register as a security? Yeah, pay $30 here, and to fill out this paperwork and do this is like, well, shit, that was easy. Why couldn't have we had done it before? Well, because they didn't want you to do it before. Because they wanted to, Elizabeth Warren, word on the street is Elizabeth Warren she helped Joe Biden win by throwing her support behind Joe Biden. In return, she was given a lot of power over all these financial matters, and that she was given the leash on Gary Gensler. I don't know if this is true. Her anti-crypto army and her policies mirroring what Gary Gensler was saying so much. Well, that seems to make sense. But is it actually true? I don't know. But Gary Gensler was definitely acting very anti-crypto, and she's very anti-crypto, so that would make sense because they weren't trying to make it fair. And this caused problems like all the businesses in this space, the investors who invested in the tokens in this space, have been hurt by those actions. That's true. Can't. So take it up with Elizabeth Warren if she is behind it. Take it up with Gary Gensler Go knock on his door, send him letters. Don't do anything violent. That's stupid. Just let him know you're frustrated. Post on their Twitter all day long, not threatening things, just fun like poop emojis or something on their post on their Twitter feed like every day. That'd be fun to see. And the truth is, like, they are getting booted out of office. Like Elizabeth Warren, I think she won her reelection. Well, she's in a severely Democrat state. It was always going to be hard to beat her, but Gary Gensler is out. Those behind Gary Gensler are out. So Elizabeth Warren has no meaningful power anymore either. So you're going to see a totally different posture on the US SEC and on crypto in general. Already some of my insiders are telling me everything has changed behind the scenes. Looking forward to that.
Agreed. You ever see Lord of the Rings, Return of the King?
Yes.
And kind of at the beginning, after the Battle of Isengard in the second movie, you have Gandalf the White, Gimli, and others be like, "Oh, what happened to Saruman?" And it's like, "Oh, he's up in the tower." And Gimli's like, "Oh, let's have his head and be done with it." And Gandalf says, "No, he has no power anymore." I feel like that's Elizabeth Warren, where it's like, she's got no power anymore.
Yes, a female version of Sauron.
Somebody please make that meme. That'd be great.
Yeah.
As far as leaving poop emojis, there was a CBT, computer-based training that we had that was like 9 hours in the military, and at the end there was just like, "Do you have any comments?" And I put in the comments, "Eat poo." And then I got called into my master sergeant's office a few days later and be like, "Hey, you can't freaking do that." I was like, "I'm sorry." So just be advised, if you put in poop emojis, you might get a talking to.
In the crypto world, if you're not a government employee, military is a government employee, you can tell people to eat poo. They don't have to listen to you, but it's still funny.
My friend messed me up the other day. He texted me, he's just like, "Hey, did you lose your CAC?" I was like, "Oh, did I?" And I was like, "Wait, I've been out for like 8 years. No, I did not lose my CAC." For those of you that do not know, CAC is called a common access card. And if you lose it, you just get in trouble and people make fun of you. And it's really funny because your common access card goes into the virtual access gate. So your CAC goes into the VAG. I thought that was always the greatest thing in military naming history. Anyway, moving back from that, we had Ben go on and he liked one of my posts on VeVeverse. VeVe put out a video showing the VeVeverse. It looked great. It had trees, it had buildings. It wasn't just the showroom. It had a Maserati that it was showing. And then it had roads. And I feel like there's zero reason to have roads unless you're going to go in and you're going to have vehicles and be able to drive them. And again, they showed the Maserati, which I thought that was really cool. So I went and I said like, "Oh, I can't wait to drive, I think, my Ecto 1 in the VeVeverse." And then he liked it. Now, I just did Ecto 1 just because I did, but a friend of mine texted me yesterday. And so my friend Ken Gwynn is CEO at Republic. They just help all of these companies like kind of raise tokens in ICOs. And they have this one from the DeLorean. And the DeLorean, they were looking at their roadmap from the past, saying like, we partnered with Other Life, MoonPay and development, started development on Flux protocol. And they have the interoperable digital DeLorean DMC-12 to be featured in top Web3 racing games. They said games as in plural. I don't know if any one of those is going to be VeVe, but that is the roadmap that they had in the past. In the future, they go and they say they are going to do something with SUI, SUI on their launchpad, hosted by Republic. They did try to launch their token on there. It didn't really do too well, so that's why they're going through Republic right now. But if DeLorean's going off and saying we're going to be in multiple games and multiple Web3 projects, I'm pretty sure VeVe is going to be one of them. So I think that's just a little bit more confirmation that we're able to go on and going to be able to drive our DeLoreans over in the VeVeverse. This is not sponsored. You even if you're in the US or wherever you are in the US, you cannot buy any of the DeLorean DMC stuff because it will not allow anyone in the US or Canada.
Yeah, I'm not gonna buy DMC coin. But like DeLoreans are cool, right? Will the VeVeverse end up being drivable? Well, they are drivable in some sense. How will this look down the road? I don't know. I don't know. Ultimately, like VeVe's in the pole position or the leader position. What I think about as an investor, do I know that VeVe will continue to be in the number one position 20 years from now? I don't, but I really like the team behind it. I've always loved David. David, you amazing. Having met Dan in person, I didn't know what to think of Dan. He's fairly on the analytical side. Both times I met him in person, he's a really cool guy. Really cool. I love Ben Rose. What a great hire. Like at first I'm like, who's this Ben Rose guy? Okay, is it Binance? I don't know anyone at Binance other than CZ, really. So, but watching him perform, I'm like, I really like this guy. This is a good team that they could be in the number one position, but you're asking the wrong questions. Like the question I ask as an investor is, are they going to survive from now until the narrative hits within the bull run? Why wouldn't they? Like there's no major road hurdles I see in the way that is going to savage them before that happens. Are they going to run out of money? I doubt it. And if they did, they could just raise funds. They have enough branding that they could go to one of their partners and be like, we need to raise $10 million. We'll give you some equity in our company. And I'm sure they could. In fact, they probably have some offers, open offers on the table that they could sell equity in their VeVe company in a heartbeat. Now, do I know things for sure? No, but I know how business sales work and equity sales. They have enough traction in a user base. It would be highly attractive, especially with what's coming. The wave of crypto attention that we're going to get in 2025 happens every 4 years, and it has since 2013. 2025 is going to be no different, especially with the U.S. changing the president. And also, he also has the Senate and the House. He is very much more pro crypto. And I've already seen some things behind the scenes. That is very much the case. The people who he is putting in place are so much more crypto than all these other yahoos. And so you're going to see a huge change. That like right now, like somebody said that OMI is on Base, but my bank blocks Base. That is because of Operation Choke Point 2.0, where they were trying to get all the banks to blacklist crypto type transactions. I have a friend, multi-millionaire. He had like $3 million he sent from his Coinbase account to his like bank account. And that they called them up. I think it's like Wells Fargo or something. It's like, hey, you have 7 days. We're canceling your account. You have 7 days to move all your business away from us, because, that was what Operation Choke Point 2.0 was about, that Mark Andreessen was talking about. That was from the Biden administration. That was from Elizabeth Warren, directed by the entity that she was pretty much controlling as her little like playground. And so you'll see under this new administration a total change in that. And U.S. funds are going to flow into crypto like we've never seen before. And 2025 is going to be a savage year that it goes up amazingly well. And so I'm just trying to invest in projects that I feel like they have enough revenues that they can survive until that happens for them. And then when it goes crazy and sentiment gets really high and people say, I'll never stop going up, that's when I'm selling. That's when I'm exiting. I am definitely not exiting right now because sentiment on the OMI token is at all-time lows and the price is right near all-time lows. Yeah, so what part of buy low, sell high do people not get? It doesn't work when you sell low to buy something else that's gone 5x or 30x up. Like if they're buying Solana with those funds, they are making the craziest trade ever. They're buying something that's right near all-time lows to buy something that is like 30x from the bottom. It does not end well for them, but they get to make that mistake. I have made some of these mistakes myself in the past. I've touched that hot stove before. I do not touch that hot stove again. Do every one of these companies make it till the bull run narrative hits? No, like we saw Meld fail like 3 weeks ago. It's like, man, you only had to make it like another 3 to 5 months. Are you kidding me? Psh. Oh, well, it might even be a month away that DeFi hits and Meld could have done tremendously. And nope, they closed their doors. Oh, well, darn it. That happens. Is OMI in a position they're going to close their door? They were in a much stronger revenue position than Meld was. Meld spent way too much money during the bear market trying to get transactions happening and money flowing through them. And they did a whole bunch of advertising and they spent all their cash on hand and they had no cash flows whatsoever and they just couldn't make it. Cool. That happens. This is early stage business investing and not every single one's going to make it. Is OMI and VeVe in that same position? They're in a much, much stronger position. Much stronger. So it makes me laugh when people are capitulating this point. I'm like, oh my gosh, are you kidding me? Oh, well, like 90 percenters, and I could overstate it and just say 95% do bad, though it's not 100% accurate. They do bad versus what they could be doing, because the numbers are literally this: almost 90%. It's a little over 89 point something percent. They literally make almost no money, or they lose money. There's about 4 point something percent that make some money, like they make 3x, 4x, 5x. The remaining 5% make 10x to like 200x. Why is it only 5%? Well, it's because 5% take this savage position when everyone's running out of the burning building. They see something like this and they see this kind of capitulation, and they're like, oh my gosh, and they buy more, or they definitely don't sell at this point, and they're just like, oh well. Oh well.
So there's a story I wanted to go over. I'll preface it by saying that there are problems that VeVe needs to solve, like, hey, how do we get some of the people that are fans of these IPs over to VeVe? And I mean, they're throwing enough money at it. They'll get that right eventually. This is independent of the narrative. But then again, you had the narrative the last few months have been memes. And it looked like it was either going to be NFTs or AI that was going to be the next narrative. And then Melania and Trump kind of launched. And I feel like that might have extended that meme narrative for another month or two, maybe even more. But the story I wanted to go over is that right now, again, there's not a lot of ways, or there's not a lot of success in VeVe getting the people that are fans of these IPs to come buy the collectibles on VeVe. They will at some point. You have Apple that spent what, like $30 million on their AR glasses, like in marketing, and it's awesome. Everyone that knows what the future is going to hold is just smitten with it. They love it. They recognize that is the future. But most people they're not there yet. And a lot of people right now in VeVe are not there yet. And thankfully, VeVe has not spent, they have not blown their load on marketing yet. But that does remind me of a story you told me about, I think it was NBA Top Shots and marketing, and they couldn't even give away their stuff. Can you tell us a little bit about that and how that might be similar to what VeVe's going through right now?
Yeah, what's funny is when your narrative is not in, it is a rough time to get returns with marketing. So I found out about NBA Top Shots because I was interested in like NFTs, and especially related to video games, but NFTs in general. Back in 2020, they were really starting to catch on in some ways. And when I was a kid, I collected baseball cards, and then later got into some basketball cards and football cards and hockey cards and collectible cards. And, I watched kind of the evolution of what made money and didn't make money. And so when NBA did a license deal with Dapper Labs to have NBA Top Shots, I didn't catch it at first. It had kind of already launched like a month, but it was really early on. Nobody was talking about it. And so when I found out about it, I searched YouTube videos on it, and I could find almost no YouTube videos on it. And one of them I did find was this guy. And it's like, hey, he had like 1.5K subscribers. And he's like, yeah, the team at Dapper Labs reached out to me and asked me to do a sponsored interview and told me that they would give me 10 packs if I did a video on, or $100 worth of packs, which equated to like 10 packs or something. I think they were $10 a pack. If I do a video on them, I was like, sure. So he's doing a video on it. I was like, that's so funny. Like 1.5K subscribers, and they're like reaching out and like, hey, we'll give you free packs of cards if you'll cover us. And there weren't many other people who took the deal because I couldn't find videos on it. And I was like, oh, you know what? But it makes sense to me. This like NBA, like I don't follow the NBA at all. As a kid, I really collected the cards, but didn't follow it much then either. But like everyone knew Michael Jordan was like the guy, and there were some other people that were like amazing. And so it's like, cool. So I bought some moments, and I put about $1,100 in, and the price on them didn't do well until the narrative hit. And the narrative for NBA Top Shots went March of 2021, right when OMI was running. NBA Top Shots and their underlying blockchain behind it, Flow, went crazy too. So OMI and Flow went absolutely crazy, and the moments went crazy. I had put about $1,100 into it. I bought a LeBron James for $58 on the resale market in like October of 2020. It was going for like $22,000, and one going for $29,000. The car that I paid $58 for, and I was like, "Holy cow!" Digital collectibles. I didn't know in 2020. I would have put more money into it, but this whole idea had not been proven because, like, I knew basketball cards did well, and like the first season of basketball cards did really, really well, especially the good players. Made sense that they did well. And I thought, well, shoot, these are essentially video moments, which are better than an individual picture, but we've never had video moments before. So I can't say I know that this will do well. I just suspect it will do well. So I put $1,100 into it. And went to about $185,000 6 months later. And I was like, holy cow. Which right about the time I saw Batman, the first Batman on the blockchain with VeVe. And I was like, wow, this is just sitting there on the store for $80 for the first Batman on the blockchain. Makes sense to me that this VeVe app selling these collectibles of some of the top licenses in the world, like Batman, is a really big deal. And then they had some of the other superheroes in the Batman universe. And then they got Marvel. And then they got, like Superman and other things. I was like, makes sense to me that these are going to do really well in the future. So, I covered VeVe back in early March 2021. And a lot of my audience got really mad at me because a lot of them were Cardano fans at the time. And they're like, why don't you cover something serious? And I was like, what don't you get? Like, I'm an investor. I invest in early stage projects, and this one's really cheap. $80 for a Batman moment. I think this does well. And I was right. It went 200x from there over the next 9 months. But half my audience stopped watching my videos because I was covering the unserious stuff of VeVe digital collectibles. Whatever. Like, I guess they didn't get the whole point of my channel, which is to cover things that are research based, that it makes sense on why the future has a really good chance to go up. And, when you're covering things that haven't gone up, that have a really good future, it's hard for a lot of people to have that vision. They're like, how can you prove it's going to do well? And it's like, you can't. Back then, when you saw Todd McFarlane on the VeVe app, guess what? It wasn't selling in early March. Like, you could buy one and 10 days later buy another one, and the number of mints difference might only be like 20 mints different. You're like, what? Only 20 of these sold in all these days, and yet these other things are going crazy. Crypto punks are going crazy, and like 20 Todd McFarlane Batman sold. Man, nothing is happening here. Their token is going crazy, but nobody's buying the collectibles. Now we're in a space that the collectibles are doing pretty good. The OMI token is way down, but it is all about timing. And digital collectibles are not in the narrative. When it does go into the narrative this time, I suspect the token goes crazy and the collectibles go crazy about the same time. One of the things I like about OMI, if you think about, like, why do people buy meme coins? Why are all these people, all these grandpas like, oh my gosh, I need to get some Trump token? Because it's not complicated. It's a meme coin. There's nothing substantively to understand other than it's a crypto. So they can feel good that they're getting into crypto because I've heard about crypto. And it's not hard to understand. It's just a Trump coin. It doesn't even do anything. So it's really simple for them to wrap their minds around. When you try to make the case for them with Ethereum, or you try to make the case for them with something substantive that I really like Wand Chain. Well, what's Wand Chain? What does it do? What do you mean talking to all these different chains and stuff? I can't understand that. They tend to roll into something really simple that they can understand. What I do love about OMI, and we saw this in 2021, they're like, oh, Batman on the blockchain. Oh, what's the token associated with it? OMI? Okay, that's all I need to understand. It's not too complicated. It's simple. And what's funny is there were a whole mess of people in 2021 that the first token really that they bought was OMI, though it was a secondary token because they had to buy Bitcoin or USDT, send it over to the exchange that they could buy OMI on. But OMI was really their first purchase on the blockchain, or the first thing that they were trying to hold. And it had the power to do that. And so I think when its narrative does run, OMI goes crazy again because there's not tons of complexity, and that's a good thing. They don't have to understand all the use cases. Doesn't matter if it has burns or not. they will see digital collectibles and they will get behind this idea that, oh my gosh, digitals are going to go, or collectibles are going to go digital. And this is going to be a massive wave. I just want to buy the token associated with it. And you'll see this come true. And it's, some people might see this and say, is that really going to happen? It is going to happen. This is just the wave of sentiment that is going to happen. It is going to play out like this. And then they will FOMO into OMI, and OMI will go absolutely crazy. And I'm looking forward to the Paul Barron video. They probably will just ignore that they made the wrong calls. Modern investor apparently like capitulated. Cool. Congratulations. I look forward to those videos, or there just won't be a video on it. They'll just ignore the mistake. But realize that most people with a YouTube channel, they're not savage investors. They aren't part of the 5%. Like, it's rare that somebody that's part of the 5% covers this stuff. In fact, one that I know that is absolutely part of the 5% is Crypto. Now, notice that he does not cover altcoin stuff anymore. He used to. That's how he started his channel, and his research was the best. In fact, if he still covered that stuff on his channel, I never would have had to launch a channel. Why? I would have just preferred to watch his channel, get his research, and just continue as an investor, watch his interviews with founders. He stopped doing all that. Why? Because there's no money in a YouTube channel doing that. So he just covers Bitcoin price. Why? Because all the altcoin research and stuff, all you get is like FUD anyway. Nobody subscribe. Like, it's not that nobody subscribes to that. The 5%ers will love your channel. The 5% that already get these concepts, they will love it. But you won't get the broader thing that makes you tons of money. So, like, he's smart in that he's like, well, if I'm going to do YouTube, I'm going to make money through YouTube. So it covers Bitcoin price changes every day. And he, talks about his Bybit link. And through Bybit, he makes millions and millions of dollars as people buy and sell Bitcoin. Does he understand the principles behind the 5%? Oh, yes. He made most of his money not from trading Bitcoin, though. He's one of the few that actually makes money leverage trading on Bitcoin. But his $1 billion net worth came mostly from altcoin investing. That's where he made his money. Like, he is absolutely part of the 5%, but it doesn't pay to make videos on this. Now, I made an agreement with my audience when I started this channel is like, look, I would like to be able to get better research. And I can only do that through having a big enough channel that people also want to hear from the companies. Because what I found is, as an investor, is you want to be able to get the questions from the team themselves, because you get way better information there. But the truth is, if you're just an investor, you don't get to talk to them. Oh, but you have a YouTube channel with an audience, all of a sudden those doors open and you can talk to them. You can have them on an interview. Not only can you ask them questions, you create an opportunity that your audience asks the questions. I mean, you've been able to benefit from that, Randy, that you get to have projects that you're interested in come on your channel and talk to you. Well, when I was just an investor back in 2020, I had no access to that. So, anyway, I made this agreement that I would stick around through 2025, the end of 2025, at least 5 years with the channel, even though the setup for it is terrible for revenues from YouTube, but it's amazing for getting better information to be able to make more informed decisions as an investor. So it's been amazing. I see some people talking about Devi in the chat. Hopefully you guys were following Devi when I was talking about it when it was 13 cents. And I was like, oh my gosh, it shouldn't be this low. When it was 25 cents, it's like, oh my gosh, it shouldn't be this low, but it is. Now, you could make the case that, yes, it is up from what it was, and there's still plenty of upside. I do think there is still plenty of upside. Not as much, though. Why? It's really hard to buy when sentiment is low. And guess what sentiment was when the token was at 13 cents? Massively low. Sentiment is not near as low as it was back then. But that's when the price was the most amazing. Now that it's, bouncing between $1.30 and higher, people are like, it's 10x up. Now, can it go another 100x from here? Possibly. It could even possibly do even better than that. But, it's hard to buy when things are savagely low. Now, OMI is savagely low right now. OMI is massively undervalued, in my opinion. That's what gets me excited to talk about. Just like I was super excited to talk about Devi when it was savagely cheap. Everyone was kind of missing it on what Devi had, and that's why I was sharing it. I'm still a big believer in Devi's future. It's one of my biggest bags, but like OMI is one of my other biggest bags, and OMI is savagely cheap right now. Gets me excited to talk about it, right? Will I be as excited to talk about OMI when it's 20 cents? No. I'll be like, love this community. I love what the token's done. I love VeVe collectibles. I'm really excited. I'm really excited for all of you who are watching my videos way back in January 22nd, 2025. I hope you're all rich. And I know some of you aren't, because some of you just want to argue. And, you know, ultimately you get to make your own decisions anyway, because I'm not telling you what to buy. I just bought another. Geez, I got to look it up. How much I buy? Millions of OMI, tens of millions of OMI.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, I bought 43 million more OMI. Awesome.
Damn. Awesome. Am I that viral kid in 2016? Because damn, Daniel, I had to take in with the OMI buys. I don't know why I made him British. So one of the things that I would go in a year, I'm not saying OMI will be 20 cents in a year, but when it's 20 cents or after it's moon from here, I'll be like, VeVe's been thinking about the future for a long time. You have Ja Rule, so all of the comic heads like rallied around this one post by Midtown Comics where they posted Ja Rule, and he had bought Fury and his Howling Commandos, something that we have on VeVe, which I was going to cover then because I thought it was great. And I noticed that, or I recognized that if you have the community rallying around like one thing, it's probably not that big of a thing either yet or anymore. Where in 2017, 2018, there was an Instagram post by Justin Bieber, and he, in his Instagram post, he had just shown his wall, and he had a couple of cards, and they were Pokemon cards, and everyone in Pokemon was like, "Oh my God, millionaires are in! That's it, we're gonna go to the moon!" And I remember a few years later, there was a clip of, and at that time, nobody really was buying Pokemon cards. He bought them just because he liked them. They weren't really for investment. They were not the greatest cards. And then a few years later, Ariana Grande, who's like one of the biggest superstars in the world at that time, on one of her videos, it showed that she had an Eevee tattoo, which is a Pokemon. And then people were like, "Oh, cool." They weren't freaking out anymore because it was ubiquitous enough that you didn't need to. Why I think comic people are rallying around Ja Rule is because they're hurting in a really bad way right now. There's a title that came out on IGN saying, "Superhero worship, the collapse of a comic book titan is bad news for a troubled industry," because Diamond Comic distributors, they're the ones that pretty much gave everyone like all their comics. They were the main distributor for all comics. I think DC and Marvel kind of got away from a little bit, but they filed for bankruptcy. Chapter 11, they're done. And wouldn't you know it, a year ago, we were heavy in discussions with Marvel to do their digital stuff. It's almost as if VeVe knew what was going to happen to physical comics, and they knew that, hey, this is the next step. Here's what we can do in order to take a look at the crumbling industry, the crumbling landscape and architecture of the old world, and say, let's build a new pillar into the new world of digital. And I still think that is one of the most underrated things that they've ever done that nobody appreciates. And they likely won't up until OMI has mooned. And they go in and they say, well, how did this happen? Well, that's one of the ways they'll make it happen. What else have they done? Again, the VeVeverse, just one, talking about NFTs when nobody was talking about NFTs is wild, years ago, and then going in and having a metaverse. All of these things, like, this is not just one stroke of luck. These are people thinking years in advance. And unfortunately, with some of those things, sometimes they don't pay off right away. Sometimes it takes a few years. But I would much rather go in and invest just with the jockey, bet on the horse, bet on the jockey. In this case, you don't have to choose, but for David, Dan, and Ben right now, just the people that have made this company what it is, and to continue that, I'll probably always have a little bit of collectibles. I'll probably always have some OMI, even though I'm going to sell. Sorry.
You can't even sell all your collectibles. Like, you can be the most savage investor, but there's something so cool about them. Like, I won't be able to sell all my collectibles. I can imagine when I like sold my other Todd McFarlane Batmans and I just have one more, am I going to be able to hit that sell button? No, because it has special meaning to me. And so it's like, even like I remember talking to one of my friends back when my vault value had gone from like 15,000 I'd put into like $600,000. And I sold some things. I had bought a whole bunch of like Marvel number ones and Spider-Man number ones and stuff. And I was selling them. But like, I looked at my friend, I was like, man, I know I need to hit the sell on like everything right now in VeVe, but he's so emotionally compelling. It's just so hard that I'm probably going to sell only like 10% and I'm just going to ride it down and then later take it back up because I love these things. And it's true. Like, it's hard. And that's a good thing long term. Now, VeVe, like I look at the direction a thing makes. I remember going through when I was at the university and business school, all these studies on like Amazon and what a failure Amazon was. And like they were bleeding red ink and they continue to bleed red ink and they're 8 years in and nothing but red ink everywhere and they're never going to be successful. And he keeps talking about this bigger vision that they're going to expand out of books and they're never going to be successful. Well, fast forward down the road and like, frick, how often, if you're in the States or Canada or something, do you use Amazon to order stuff rather than running to the store? And sometimes you'll have it like 4 hours later. And so Amazon was ultimately a picture of success. Now, VeVe, I look and it's like, it's still in that unknown stage. Digital collectible is going to be the future. I think it is the future of collectibles. VeVe is doing some big things, like some really cool things recently. We had this Silver Surfer burn in order to create some upgrades. And then we have recently announced some Marvel Mighty things. So tell us what's going on with the Marvel Mighty things. You've been a big believer in Marvel Mighties, that they would be a key to the future. Talk to us about what the announcement is and where that's going, because I think these are really big things for the future of digital collecting.
Yeah, something that I think that's been underappreciated is people going and saying like, okay, cool. Yeah, we have this new Galactus NFT. And yeah, we're able to go in and burn our Silver Surfer. That's cool. And it did pump the price a little bit. I think they were $20 at the time, or under $20 at the time of the announcement. They went up to like 90, but they're back to like 40, but they're still double of where they were from before the announcement, which is great. That's fine for people that hold. But what I think people are skipping is that they just set a precedent. Now, every single Marvel collectible under the sun, including the Mighties, can now be burned, making all of them absolutely scarcer. And they don't come back. It's not a Marvel movie where, yeah, they're kind of dead, but nobody ever really dies. No, they're burned. They can't come back. Everyone comment F down below the person that accidentally burned a secret rare Miles Morales for that $3, I forget what it was, like the gemstone that they had. But now you're able to do that with the Marvel Mighties. They had gone over and said, hey, every Captain America Marvel Mighty, including Captain Carter, who was not part of the original Captain America Marvel Mighties. Originally, it was Steve Rogers, Bucky Barnes, Sam Wilson, John F. Walker, and then it was also Red Skull. But Red Skull is not included in this. A couple of months later, a couple of drops later, you had Captain Carter come in. She is a Comic-Con exclusive. So you have that little variant, which is really cool. She's a part of this, that you're going to be able to burn them. It costs $3, and you can go in and burn it to something that's animated, and then you can burn it again to be like super animated. There's two different types of upgrades. And here's the thing: they're only doing like the heroes of Captain America. They're not doing the Red Skull, which I thought was interesting. And why? Is he left conspicuously absent? But they burn collectibles, they burn MCP, they raise a little bit of money while doing it. Very, very excited for this. What are your thoughts?
I think it's fun, right? It introduces additional gamification. Now, one of the hard things to see is what digital collecting is going to look like 10 years down the road. And we don't know that. So you have to try to forecast. And I call it the golden vision. I realized this with real estate investing, why so many people couldn't do it, because they could only see what's here now. They can't take what they've learned about what's here now and see that something down the road where there's nothing happening. In the future, there's going to be something happening, and that's going to be the new place where all the development is. And so some people are stuck on exactly where VeVe is now, but realize a year from now, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, 4 years from now, it's going to look very different. And you can see some evolution. That like some of the early models weren't very good. Electra, you can see that like they introduced 3D animations, right? When they did the Spider-Man secret rare and he could flip upside down, so I was like, dang, that's so cool. And some of these animations are getting even cooler. And then they introduced sounds into some of them and other things. And just think where technology isn't going to stay the same. They also have introduced like burning mechanisms now, which will make some of these things even more scarce in the future, which is exciting to me with these collectibles because scarcity drives demand. And so like you had that secret rare Spider-Man burn that I'm just like, oh my gosh, the Miles Morales accidentally burned, but then it's forever gone. And so these burns like are real. Do you realize how many people had their 1952 Topps Mickey Mantle decorating the spokes on their bicycle as they rode their bicycles around, and they would take their baseball cards and put them in there, essentially kind of like burned. So some of these things that might have significant value 10 or 20 years from now, we can get burned this year. Why? Because, it's just whatever utility, and people burn these that make them even more scarce. And that's fun for me. It also introduced an element of fun. People like being able to burn to create something even more animated. So not only does it make those collectibles more scarce, it also makes how many are animated scarce in a different way. And it's introducing some cool things that are going to be part of making digital collectibles an everyday thing in the future. What's fun, though, now for me is most of the world is not awake to digital collectibles. I like things that go up in value. And what happens is later on, most of the world wakes up to digital collectibles. And let's say only 10% of the population really likes collecting. And out of those, maybe 2% of the population is into like Marvel and Disney type stuff. Well, still, the number of people that are collecting in the future is so much higher than the number of people collecting now. And a lot of those people have a lot of money. And they'll come in and see these early collectibles that they weren't around when they were released or when the burn moments were created, or, some of them were burned, and they then have to buy those from all of you, but you don't want to sell them. Oh, but they're offering so much money. Maybe you are willing to part with your collectible that you love, but now you could buy a brand new sports car with the money that you get from selling it. Okay, now you're willing to part with it. And that, that demand comes because what we saw with Pokemon was that some people that had serious wealth were willing to come in and buy these scarce items and pay huge dollars because they wanted the social flex of it. They just wanted to own it. And I think with VeVe being one of the first digital collectible things out there, creating such good IP, I think the demand in the future has a really high potential to be really high on some of these early things. And that's exciting to me, right? So I tend to go for major IPs that I really love, hoping that other people really love. Like I'm a big fan of like the Darth Vader moments, the Boba Fett moments. Those are the two characters within the Star Wars universe that have historically done the best with longer term collectors and those with big money. The Millennium Falcon, as far as ships, and then Slave One, as far as ships, have also done the best. DeLorean historically has like a lot of sentimental value because of the Back to the Future movie. What other?
The Slave One in real life, that went up a lot because Disney went a little woke and they said, we're no longer calling this the Slave One. So any old collectible that had Slave One on it was immediately bought up because they would never make any more from that again. So sometimes like life throws a little bit of a curveball, and some things that maybe wouldn't have gone up as much goes up just because.
I have two of those really big Lego Slave Ones in storage that like, oh yeah. I haven't checked on what the value is. I don't know that I'm going to need to sell them. I'm going to build at least one. And in the future, I'm going to have the Lego room because I am a total nerd when it comes to that. I love Lego shit. When I was a kid, we were too poor for Legos. That was my mom's. Oh, honey, I'd love to get you Legos, but we're too poor for that. So it's like, Legos are fun for me. And so I'm going to have a Lego room. I'm going to build out the really expensive, cool shit, like the really big Millennium Falcon and the Slave One and other things. And people say, wow, you're such a kid, Ray. And it's like, yep. I'm just making up for lost time. Didn't have the money when I was a kid. So, I still want that part of my childhood. So I'm just going to live it out while I'm older. Cool.
Same. I still like cereal. I watched 2 episodes of Recess the other day. I forget why. I just reminded me of Yo-Yo, and I remember that one episode where Gretchen Grumler wins the Yo-Yo contest. Spoilers. It's like 25 years old right now. It's not really spoilers anymore. And she does the Invisible Man walking. It was really cool. Anyway, that's the issue with some of the stuff that we have. It's like it's so damn cool. They're so fun and they're so nostalgic, and it's hard to sell because they're awesome. Mr. MC1 saying VeVe's highly innovative company, and sometimes big IP can take a lot of time to approve such new innovations. I think 2025 will blow our minds with the new features, tech, and innovations. I believe so as well. What specifically from that did you want to point out?
Well, I think he nails it with that. So, like a lot of these burn mechanisms and stuff, it's really hard to get the bigger IP behind it. Like even the burn mechanism with the existing one, they don't really get it because they're not really paying attention to crypto. Wait to a favorable regulatory environment for crypto and prices to be coming in massively, and you will see these businesses getting really creative. They'll all of a sudden be diving in deep so that they understand what's happening with this massive money shift. And then you'll probably see them take more fun, innovative approaches with what they're doing with their collectibles and with different ideas. So I think he's right with 2025. We'll see a lot more of that. And in the future going forward, seeing a lot more fun stuff. But some of these early collectibles, like even especially the bad ones, I wouldn't be surprised if down the road Electra is worth a whole lot because she is so bad. She's uniquely bad for the VeVe collectibles as far as how bad she is compared to everything else. Probably it will have its own value because of that. Who knows? I bought some specifically for that reason. Like some of this old stuff that isn't animated, maybe you have to burn something to make it animated. Or if not, like the fact that it is so old and unanimated compared to what they're doing there, maybe has value. It's exciting to be part of the early days later on. It's exciting to have been part of the early days later on as all the waves of people are coming in. And people be like, no way, you were involved in VeVe in 2024? What? Oh my gosh, how'd you hear about it? What? You were involved in 2021? Oh my gosh.
There's Mr. MC1 even posts on X just now saying, waiting for VeVe official to do with older comics, Burn to Craft, and similar mechanics as done with Galactus, Marvel Mighties, etc. He's champing at the bit in order to burn some of his MC1s. He'll have so many of those. It'll be great.
Yeah, MC, great comic, right? Like it's so many. I love their comics. The Marvel license, that was such a big deal. At first, when they got the Marvel license for these comics, it took me like several days to wrap my mind around it. I was like, wait, they have a license with digital version of these comic books with Marvel? That's a really big deal. Why is nobody seeing this? And like when they launched it, all I heard was a whole bunch of complaints. I was like, oh, and you could buy the like Fantastic Four #1s or whatever, the first Fantastic Four they released, the Marvel comic #1s. You could buy the commons for like $3. Even though they were selling for $7, people were just dumping their comics mad that they weren't getting something else. Like bunch I bought for like $2.75 and stuff. And I was just like, buy. I was like, I think these will do really well, And in that following bull run, those ones went up to like $600 or $700 a piece from like $3. It was crazy to get 300x. And still, like right now, that $300 seems like so high compared to where the price is now. I think in the future it'll be a lot higher than that. But you're right, it is a lot higher than it is now because remember the pendulum swings too far each way, and during a bull run, you'll see the prices again swing too far one way. Guess what's coming after that? It'll swing back. It won't swing as far as it probably is now, but it'll swing back significantly.
Oh, the Mr. MC1 goes down in comments. Is like, hey, any guesses on next week's announcement? So he's referring to Ben Rose going off and saying something's pretty special is coming next week. This one is meaningful. And then he does go, I think like an hour ago now, he had responded to that with a status from VeVe. And they had gone off and said, God, where am I at here? Okay. Urgent call to action. the VeVe community cares for the victims of the LA wildfires. To support VeVe, comma, should be a comma there, VeVe will be launching a special drop on Monday, 27 January to help with victim relief. All proceeds will go directly to the Red Cross. Please stay tuned for full details coming soon. We'd love your help. As part of the launch, please go to our Discord page and submit a video of yourself sending a heartfelt message to those impacted by the LA wildfires. We will combine your messages for a special video for the victims. That's really great for a bunch of reasons. David had mentioned that VeVe was working on a charity arm years ago. I wonder if this is going to be the first thing for that. I wonder what the drop would be. I did tell Ben that I would offer Dashi up, as first time. I don't think they're using this. They didn't contact me, but these types of things would be. This is what VeVe will be known for. Like they raised, I don't know, like $750,000 last time for victims of Ukraine. If they were to go off and do this, that is one, it's really good. It's good karma. You're helping people. But two, and I think this might be important for further helpings, this is some of the best press that they could get. And it's one, they're not just getting in front of people's faces, but they're going on and getting in front of people's faces for a very good reason. It's like Scholastic Book Fair. When you go on and you used to buy things in there, a lot of stuff is in your face, but it's in your face in the form of literacy and children's literacy and reading and education. So it's not like it's in your face for a bad reason, in your face for a very good reason. Last time the Red Cross they made a video about us. And then you'll have a bunch of people going to participate. They might even have to cut it down. I don't think they're going to send. If you're a victim, you don't want to see like a 20-minute video of everyone saying like, "I'm so sorry, you lost all your stuff." So they might have to cut it down. If you go in and send it and you don't get in, it's probably okay. It's probably for the better. But yeah, this is. I'm very excited about it. What are your thoughts? Oh yes, we did. Yes, we did. Yeah. For those just listening, Mr. MC1's VeVe fam, thanks for helping us raise $10,000 in the Randy Chavez channel in just one evening for the LA fires. My back is still destroyed, but yes, good times.
What's fun is with digital collectibles, they can be responsive, right? In physical collectibles, you can't, the logistics behind it are usually wrong to be able to pump out a physical collectible in order to sell in time for something that happens, because these things happen in real time, right? So the LA fires is like if they were to have to make a physical collectible and try to release it to their community, I mean, you'd be talking like 3 months production time, design and production time to be able to produce them. You could sell them and say, it will be mailed to you months down the road. Whereas with digital collecting, they can make something cool and hopefully meaningful. I'm excited to see what it is. Savage what's happened in California. I mean, this is just, I know politics, but this is what happens when you put stupid politicians in front of, like, in charge of your stuff. They drain the reservoirs to save a fish, and then you have no water accessible to your fire hydrants. Oh, and they cut the fire department. I mean, this is a recipe of the insurance companies. Everyone blames the insurance companies, like these evil insurance companies. They cannot insure something that they can see and happen. It's like somebody's been in 5 accidents in a row. They're going to deny coverage to that person further because they're a wreck waiting to happen. And the insurance companies were just not denying reality of like, oh my gosh, this is like a tinderbox going to go up in flames. There's like no water available to them. The fire hydrants don't have pressure. We can't insure this area. And you can think those evil, greedy insurance companies, they also can't be stupid. And that's just stupid. It was the politicians who were stupid. And I don't know if they did it intentionally. I don't understand how they could be dumb enough it wasn't intentional. But either complete stupidity or intentionality, it's one of the two. And be careful who you elect. Like, I mean, I hope California learned some lessons that, like, it's not just the party you elect, the specific politicians. Like, they should be blacklisted. These politicians should be blacklisted from politics. Like, they're politicians. You elected them. There shouldn't be criminal charges for this unless there was criminal activity. But, like, somebody put these politicians in charge, and you should evaluate who you're putting in charge of your stuff if this happened, because this was political. I know they're saying global warming, climate change. Oh, my gosh. Bullshit. It's not climate change. We've had climate changing for 10 billion fucking years. This is politicians creating a situation that, of course, it burned down. Did they mean to burn it down so that they could be in charge of the redevelopment? I don't know. I wonder about that. I'm like, gosh, that couldn't be the case. Nobody could be that malevolent. Probably isn't the case. But the thought crossed my mind, like, because how could they be this stupid?
I mean, you have a double whammy here because you have insurance companies that you said, like, yeah, can't be sued, they pulled out, but they didn't just pull out. They tried to say, like, hey, we can still cover this in case something happens, but we just have to raise rates. And California's like, no, you can't do that. We need to protect our people. You can't do these predatory rates. So like, okay, well, California, you can say that they can't raise rates, but then the insurance agent is going to pull out, and then these people have no insurance. And then on the rebuild, they're doing the same exact thing where they go and say, hey, we're worried about price gouging. You can't charge any more than like 10% or 20% for rebuilding as anyone else did. But when there's so much demand, you need to go in and say, like, hey, you need to pay what you need to pay in order to rebuild your house. And that's what happens in the free market. When you have something go up 20 or 30%, then architects, people that have construction companies, can come in from other states and be like, hey, we're here to help. We know there's a pocket for demand. They go in until it rebalances. But because that law is in there that's saying, hey, you can't go up, there's no incentive for new builders. There's no incentive for people that are in construction to go in and help California, because it's just not economically viable for them to do that. And then it's going to be years before any of these people get anything for their homes. They just own plots of land. And what I know is the same thing's going to happen as what happened in Hawaii. You're going to have these big corporations go in, offer them like 10 cents on the dollar for their stuff, 5 cents on the dollar for their stuff. They'll sit on it. And I don't know if this is just coincidence, but you had X amount of, like, I think last year, people saying, we want to make LA a smart city. They had no ways of saying how they were going to do that, just the declaration of we want LA to be a smart city. Well, now it can, because everything burned out. And I hate to be the one to say, like, this smells really funky. This smells like this was intentional. But when you go and you say, hey, we don't want to do these burn controlled fires, that is going to help in the long run because it's a bad carbon footprint. What type of carbon footprint is up there right now? Freaking hate I'm getting so freaking pissed off. Ugh, I need a drink, but I drank my drink. Sorry.
Yes, like, how could they be this stupid? Yet it's either stupidity or malfeasance or malevolence. Like, it's that. And so, like, the truth is, you put these politicians in charge, California. I hate to say it, but you need to stop pointing the finger at the politicians. And if you voted for them, it's your fault. Okay, the news told you to vote for him. Cool. Why are you still listening to those news people? News people are like, Gavin Newsom is the best ever. Look how good looking he is. I don't fucking care if he's good looking. Oh, look how eloquent he speaks. Yes. Look at the results of his policies. Let's shut off the water to all these reservoirs and all these water tables so that we can redirect it straight into the Pacific Ocean so that we can protect the river delta smelt. I've never heard of river delta smelt before. You don't care about fish. That's probably true. I don't care that much about fish. Not that I want species to go extinct. But wait, you're telling me you're going to shut off all the water to all the people in your area because some species of fish, like, are you even saving the species of fish? If I'm not for that, like, suddenly I hate fish or something, can you make a better case for me? You can't question us. We know what's best for the fish. Okay. Yeah. Well, like you said, how's the carbon footprint of California doing now? Like, of course, this recipe of don't do controlled burns, like, it almost adds up to they meant to burn the city down. They might not have lit the fires, although who the hell lit these fires? Because they were lit. This was not global warming. These were started fires by somebody who I have no freaking idea. But, like, come on, they created the tinderbox and then somebody lit the fires. So the people who created the fire should be in trouble. The people who created the tinderbox, I don't know if you should go and, like, throw politicians in jail. I don't like that precedent. I like the precedent of you unelect them, and then you're much smarter about who you elect. Now, if there's actual criminal malfeasance where politicians are calling and talking to these people who lit the fires, well, that's illegal. That's malfeasance. But if they just made stupid policies, you don't throw them in jail for stupidity. I'm sorry. You only throw them in jail for, like, malicious stuff. And I can't see a world. I hope there's not a world where the politicians were in coordination with the people starting the fire. That I don't want to believe that.
I mean, so you're going to see what's going to happen because people were worried, okay, well, this fish is really important to this ecosystem. That's why we have to divert water from here over to the ocean. Now Trump signed that bill, the Put People Over Fish Act. It's a wild name for a bill. And it's going to take the water from there and to combat these fires. And we're going to see what's going to happen. Is that going to be enough water taken away from the fish to take that population, dwindle it, collapse it? And is that going to like harm the ecosystem? Like, we'll see. I mean, we'll see in the next year. I hope that the fish survives, and I hope that the ecosystem is fine. But
to tell you the truth, I don't trust the people that were supposedly saving the fish. I did live in Sacramento for a couple of years, and these people are freaking crazy. And like, do they actually save the things that they're trying to save? One of the greatest ways you can make a population almost die is put it on the endangered species list. Like, it just did weird things. Like, and they're like, we need to save the black rhinos in Africa. And then they're like, it's illegal to hunt the black rhinos, but they put no better mechanisms than it's illegal. And it made their horns so valuable. They almost made a case that the black rhinos were like going extinct, because then the value to poachers was so high that they almost were killing all the species they were trying to protect, because they weren't putting in smart ways to protect them. No. And I don't think that they were doing on purpose, but a lot of times politicians don't ask, what are the unintended consequences of my actions? A lot of times the voters don't ask, what are the unintended consequences of the actions? Well, guess what? The unintended consequences of rediverting all that water away from Southern California straight into the Pacific Ocean to supposedly save some species of smelt that you had never heard of before is LA would burn to the fucking ground. Man, that's a huge unintended consequence. Big deal.
There's a lot of times where I think most times they play on people's emotions, and they'll go through this story, be like, hey, why is this person, and they'll use like the rich white man from the US going to another country, and he's shooting this poor innocent animal. And it's like, well, what they're not saying is that this poor innocent animal is old, they're sick, they're going to die anyway, and they're charging this hunter $50,000 in order to kill this animal that's not going to breed. It's going to die anyway, and they're going to use that for conservation. But when they just play it and say, no, we should make this illegal, and they play on people's emotions and they vote for it, well, now these areas that need this money, poachers are like, these hunters are not going to come in and pay that $50,000 tag, and they're not going to get that money. And then what happens to the ecosystem? It gets wrecked. So I feel like a lot of these people.
What's funny is those incentives saved some of these populations that they gave tribes. They're like, okay, these areas, all the elephants in your area, you can sell licenses to hunt these. And so what they would do is they would kill the poachers. They would take care of the poachers themselves, because they're like, we own these animals. And if you're going to kill our animals, we're going to take you out. And the populations thrived. And then they would let hunters come in and be like, okay, you're allowed to kill this one because it's old. It's already made it a whole bunch. And like, so then and they would make a bunch of money to feed the village so that they could afford the arms to fight the poachers. And it was this amazing thing. Yeah. And then the news stories that come in and like mess up these situations and change the laws that went right back to like bad policies. You see this in politics all the time. And I know this channel isn't about politics. You can't avoid politics completely. Good business, unfortunately, you have to recognize bad politics, bad politicians in order to have good businesses. And if you're going to be an investor, you have to be aware of what's going on with politics. I wish we could be in a world that we just didn't ever have to think about politics. And that would mean politics running so good and there's no corruption in it. That world does not exist and will probably never exist. Why? Because when there's power involved, corrupt people will try for that power, and you have to be aware of that. So it's like, bad policies. We've seen the SEC. Gary Gensler absolutely understood crypto before he came in. I was excited when they announced that he was going to appoint him. I did not realize that somebody would be controlling his leash to take a person that did understand crypto, that said that most things aren't securities, that said ETH is not a security before he is in that position. And then he would 100% go 180% from what his views were, change them entirely, create this really crazy regulatory environment. This is what happens when bad politicians get put in place. And so I'd love to live in a world we never had to think about that. That's naive to think you can never think about politics and be an investor. No, you have to understand politics at least to some degree to be a good investor, because politicians can absolutely ruin a deal. I remember I invested in this property in this one area that this big thing was going to go forward, right, in this area. And I didn't live in this area, but I knew some people locally who did. And it was in a certain state within the United States. And I bought this 12-plex because they were going to open up this mining place right close by, and massive mining was going to be increased there. And like 2 weeks before that happened, some local political action committee got the governor to shut it down 2 weeks before it was all supposed to happen, and made the investment almost worthless because of politics. It was just politics, and didn't see that one coming. So you cannot be an investor and be ignorant of politics. Unfortunately, I wish there was a world, and maybe sometime in the future there will be that. There never has been in past, so probably not going to happen in the future either.
There's a quote, I forget who said it, where it says, just because you don't take an interest in politics doesn't mean that politics won't take an interest in you. I was like, oh, that's such a good one.
Yeah.
Even now, like there's, and I won't even say which side wanted to do it. You could probably guess, like, hey, we should label cartels terrorists. And then the New York Times, like, this is how labeling cartels terrorists could hurt the U.S. economy. Like, what? There's the hoops that people try to jump through to try to make it so that one side, and both sides are guilty of it, but to make one side seem like it's a bad idea when clearly something is a good idea, and they just jump out. Like, I remember in 2021 where I had made a post on Facebook saying, like, hey, I did not vote for Biden, but I hope he does the best job for America, and I hope America thrives. Did that happen? Maybe in certain ways the people can thrive despite certain things, but same thing. If you love America, you should want whoever's president to do a really good job, and to like hope that they do a bad job and hope that it hurts the country. That's lunacy. That's very wrong on many levels. You should hope that whoever's in charge does a really good job and Americans thrive.
America has showed us what free markets can do, and it's exciting. Free markets, like I often thought about why was there so little innovation during the dark ages of Europe, right? That literally in Jesus Christ's time, most transportation was done with a horse with a cart behind it. And then 1800 years later, the carts got fancier, but still the same transportation mechanisms. The amount of innovation that went on during that time in Europe was like almost nothing. And how could that even happen? And it was essentially because Europe was so corrupt, and it stymies innovation. And so the American experiment has been like, as much as America isn't free from corruption and Canada is not free from corruption, like America has been a bastion of like free ideas. The internet really was pulled into adoption out of the US. Like other countries could have adopted it, but they just had too many politicians in the way of technology. The US was actually somewhat close to it, but there was enough US support that the politicians finally got on board. I remember some of those debates back then, and like, oh, this internet thing is only used by pornographers and criminals, and we need to shut it down. And surprisingly, they're getting massive donations from AT&T and other phone companies. These politicians that were massively against the internet and voice over internet protocol. And how can you allow that? We want to keep charging 30 cents a minute long distance. And it's like voice over internet protocol is going to wreck our long distance charges. And boom, the internet happened. When was the last time, you can talk to people half the world away on a FaceTime call over Wi-Fi internet and pay nothing now? That was unimaginable 30 years ago. And innovation. And it's because largely America is corruption free. I wish the case was true that Canada was like corruption free. But like I was thinking about the reality of Canada versus the United States. Like the richest province in Canada is like poor per capita than the poorest state in the United States. And so Canada sits on a mountain of natural resources and other things. The reason with a fairly good people that's fairly honest. The only thing really holding back is all the corruption, but it's still not to where dark ages were. So, off of the California wildfires, the charity thing was amazing. I wish it didn't have to happen. I wish politicians weren't so idiotic. Realize this isn't the first time in history politicians have been idiots. That's what kept the dark ages there. And you can return to the dark ages if you put the wrong politicians in office long enough. It is cool to have like representative democracy in the United States, that in most of the states you can vote out the leaders eventually, and across the country. We'll see what the Trump presidency does. I thought Biden would be a lot better than he was. It was disappointing how bad he was for crypto. I do remember Mike Novogratz promising that the Biden administration was going to be great for crypto. Oh boy, they did not deliver on that. And the SEC was very anti-crypto and really tried to hold back the tidal wave that was coming, and they weren't successful. They were successful in making it really hard for U.S. people to participate in that. And it's unfortunate. The U.S. has been the Reddit stepchild of crypto. If you're in the US and you've been trying to buy like on these, like it's so few the exchanges you can be on, everything's so much more difficult for you. I hope that changes in the coming months with Donald Trump as president.
There's a post here from Mr. MC1 saying, today, ICE arrested 430 illegal aliens with criminal histories and are deporting them. That is a win for everyone. Agreed 100,000%. Obviously, you have the people like, is someone's like Abuela that makes like the best empanadas? Should we deport her? Absolutely not. We should definitely keep all the empanadas as much as we can. But yeah, these types of things, I think we can. Let's find the wins. Let's celebrate the wins together. And if there is something that maybe happens where it maybe a little, hey, we shouldn't do this. Let's take the evil and fight them together.
You know what's fun? Like some people get really bummed about like, oh, corruption is worse than ever before. It's not. There's bad things, and a lot of history is self-correcting. Or like a lot of politicians that are really bad, they get voted out. I remember there was like some state in like the U.S. It was like the dumbest thing, and they decided that they were going to charge rainwater tax. So it's like, oh my gosh, per the square footage of your business, the rainwater that falls on your roof is just, and the concrete you have, it's just getting washed into our rivers, and we're going to charge a tax for that. Oh boy, did those. So they implemented and everything because they had like the governorship and like the state legislature and stuff. Boy, that party got thrown out on their asses the next election that came up. And this is what's good about representative democracy, or actually the U.S. isn't a democracy, it's a republic, which is essentially a representative democracy, is that you can get these people out of office so that you can correct these problems. So you don't have a dark ages, right? And dark ages is like, oh, great, the terrible king, now his son's taking over, frick, and it couldn't fix the problem. But these problems do get corrected. Companies, what I like about companies is that bad people can get fired. Boards can fire bad things, or the company goes out of business and some other company replaces them. And so what I like about companies over like investing in countries is that companies, like it's a little bit more predictable, their success. You can financially benefit from it, that kind of thing. So anyway, you can see the same evolution in some countries that you're like, oh, that country is going downhill, bad leadership. Same thing applies to companies and good leadership.
Agreed. And I think that some people are missing, like, I feel like if you're a Democrat, you loved Obama. He was very harsh on the border. He was very harsh on illegal immigration. So maybe if we just explain it like, oh, hey, he's just adopting some of Obama's policies, maybe then we could, I don't know, have some reach across the aisle and shake hands on certain things. Anyway,
I don't know if I'd use the term very harsh on the border. I guess compared to what you've seen from Biden, it would seem very harsh. Trump was very harsh on the border. Obama was like mildly harsh, but it definitely different than what Biden did, who threw open the doors, right?
That is a fair point. We are at about 2 hours here. Is there anything else you want to go over before we bounce? I mean, we've gone over like half of what we expected to. We could go 3 hours. I feel like you're going dancing tonight, though.
Yeah. Real quick, like Bit4X still has 13 billion OMI. When will the sell pressure end? Like, look, it is unusual that OMI's been punished so much during the bear market, and I know it feels like a bad thing. If you could roll back in time to 2020 and you had loaded up on Cardano at like 7 cents and Cardano then dropped to 5 cents, and it's a little bit cheating because you're able to see the future, and you know Cardano went much, much higher. It topped out at $3.40. But you had bought and loaded your bags at like 7 cents and 6 cents. And then it drops to like 4 cents. Is that a bad thing in the long-term perspective? Is it bad when it then goes to 3 cents? Is it terrible when it goes to 1.7 cents? Realize it went to 1.7 cents before it later went to 14 cents and then to 28 cents and then to 70 cents and then to $1.30 and then to $3.30. So you're looking at this point in time and you're like, oh my gosh, OMI is so. Look down the road. I know you can't see the future, but down the road, it's not going to stay this long. And so is it bad that's going down this? What I ask myself as an investor is this a sell point? Well, no. The BitForex fiasco of like BitForex getting shut down by Chinese authorities, and it's one of the few exchanges people from the US were able to use a VPN and buy some on. Okay, it created extra problems for OMI token. And that only sucks if you've stopped buying and didn't take advantage of this opportunity. If you took advantage of this opportunity, just like when Cardano hit 3 cents, and then, boy, the miracle happened, it went to 1.7 cents, that wasn't a bad thing. That was a great thing for people who had long-term vision. A lot of people use that as an excuse to dump Cardano for Tezos, which was up 10x. Cool. They made a terrible long-term bet. And a lot of people are using this OMI being down even more, and BitForex still has 13 billion as an excuse to capitulate. Cool. Goodbye. Guess you're not part of the 5%. That's okay. Maybe in the future you'll be ready to. You're not now, and that's okay.
And that thought experiment of OMI keeps going down. What if it goes down further? Okay, let's play those dominoes out. We're at 0029-ish. So let's say we get cut in half again. We're at an $80 million market cap. Let's say we go down to a $40 million market cap. And we're at 000145. Okay, I mean, and let's say you don't expect OMI to go to near all-time highs. Let's say it goes to a tenth of that. All-time high is about 1.3 cents. Let's say it just goes to 0013. Well, if you're at 0014, or if you're at 0014, well, it still does a 10x, even if it only goes to 1/10 of where it went last time, which I feel like it'll go higher. But I mean, at that point, I'm just playing the odds of like, okay, either this goes to 0 or it doesn't, and I'm betting on that it doesn't because of the revenues, because of that narrative that comes in. Yeah. So I would, if that happened in 2 months, oh god, at 0014, and by 200 million OMI, I'd go nuts.
Keep in mind, because this is how it's going to play out. There will be a time in the near future that OMI is going crazy and waves of new people will be coming in, and OMI sentiment will be crazy through the roof. And realize when you're feeling that, it is not time to buy more like everyone will be telling you. It is time to be taking your profits like a savage investor should. And it'll be hard because you'll be making another hard choice. If you've been making the hard choice and going against the grain of buying low, which is investing really comes down to this simple thing of buy low and sell high. But realize that buying low is savagely hard and most people can't do it. Selling high is savagely hard and most people can't do it. If you can figure out how to go against the grain, identify through research good projects that are worth buying when they're low, and then you actually buy them when they're low, and then you actually sell them when they're high, you figured it out. Congratulations. You're on your way to massive riches. And I'm excited for that day. I know so many of you are figuring this out. I'm really excited. I can see down the road of how this comes together for you, because the hardest part is buying low. And if you're savage enough to buy low, most of you are then going to be able to sell high. I'm really excited for what that looks like. And then you'll rinse and repeat. You'll do it again, and then you'll do it again. And your future is awesome. And that's what gets me excited. That's why I make these videos, is I can see that future for so many of you. And that gets me excited. It's not because YouTube pays me about $50 a month for my videos. Thanks, YouTube. I really appreciate it.
That was good. Ryan, I always love these talks. I love talking with you all the time. Can't wait to do it again. Obviously, we have our shows on Wednesday, and every now and then we go and have one on like a random Saturday or whatever. Until next week.
All right.
We'll
see you, everyone.
Woof, woof, meow, meow.